everybody. Welcome to Pharmaceutical Soccer. So happy to be here it's weird to not have soccer this season. What happened? Did I cut out?
No, you just said you were so happy to be here, but as Valair and I both know from before you started recording, you were not happy to be here.
I was happy to be here, Clay. I just got mad about a certain thing that was being. Now I'm upset, Valair. I was happy. Now I'm upset.
Why are you bringing me
How's your
into
weekend,
this? This is
Valair?
between you and Clay. I have nothing to do here. I would wish we had started this show with a better note. I hope for my both co-hosts to figure this out. Clay, please stop interrupting Steven. Steven, please stop being yourself. I don't know.
What?
Welcome all to Pharma Soccer.
This show is stupid. You give Clay a legitimate thing and then just say, "Hey, stop being all of this." What is that movie where they're like, "Hey,
It's the off season. We're having fun.
It's the off season, as you guys heard, and I'm gonna do the intro to this show because here we are right now. I want to say that I apologize for saying we're not gonna have enough topics to talk about last week. Saying, "Oh, we might take this week off and enjoy our, an hour of our Monday or whatever." But here we are. We got a good amount of prep done throughout the week, I guess, just because of news kept breaking, and we have a very, very heavy show. But before that, I know we always start with my weekend. I want to start with Steven's weekend because it seems like he really wanted to talk about it. So go ahead, Steven.
Well, I mean, I had a good weekend. It was kind of chill. I'm still sick a little bit, so I'm kind of coming over a sickness a little bit. I
Are
had
you
my
down with the
first show.
sickness?
Yes, I am down with the sickness, Clay. I had my first show with my band over the weekend, so that was fun on Thursday. If anybody, I'm in a Paramore tribute band, so I had my first show. It went really well, so yay. And then I also went to the NWSL semifinal, Spirit versus the Portland Thorns, which was great to be a part of. It was great to see Audi Field full, as they cannot fill it for DC United. But let me tell you, the sellout for the Spirit and the support for the Spirit is just absolutely phenomenal. They have good capos. They have a good supporter section. Just it was a really fun experience. I've been to a couple NWSL matches, but to be there for a playoff match, especially with the Spirit making the final for the second time, consecutively, it was a lot of fun, and they absolutely dominated the game. And I made the broadcast wearing a Nashville jersey, which was funny because it was a gold out. It was a yellow out, and that was the only yellow jersey that I had. So that is why I wore.
Okay.
I have a Spirit black shirt, but it was a yellow out. So I'm like, I'm gonna make sure I wear something yellow. So I now have a yellow Spirit jersey, but I wanted to make sure I was fitting in.
You didn't have any like Michigan gear?
I did, but I didn't. It doesn't really fit that well.
It's not as bright.
Oh.
And it's not as bright,
Yeah.
and it doesn't fit that well. I thought I fit in.
I did watch.
Well, it's nice that the Spirit weren't in the misery business this weekend, wasn't it?
I watched the second half of that game. Spirit were pretty much in control the whole time I watched, at least. Trinity Rodman came back to playing. I think the last time she played was in August, and she only played like 2 minutes at the end. But
I know. Imagine
cool.
being like that good, where you're like, "Hey, and I'm now gonna bring in Trinity Rodman in the 88th minute when you're up 2-0." I'm like, no, there's no way she comes in like save her for the final. Nope, ready to go. It made a couple good moves as well.
Yeah. So, but
Valair, how's your weekend?
NWSL. The final is going to be Gotham FC versus Spirit. So DC versus New York. Pretty good. I don't know if there's a rivalry there in NWSL. To be fair, I don't keep up, but I think there's going to be a good amount.
Technically, the New York, New Jersey.
Well, I think that Gotham is interesting though, because they were the 8th seed in the playoff. Right. They beat Kansas City in dominant fashion, and then to be the 8th seed and then make it to the final, which, by the way, is played in a neutral site. That doesn't make any sense to me for NWSL purposes. But so these two East Coast teams are traveling to San Jose
Man, that's brutal.
for the final.
That's brutal. That is brutal. You know, I do like the neutral site thing for maybe like a more established league or clubs. Like even MLS, I don't think they have what it takes to do this.
I don't think so either.
But like, you know, if it's a Champions League final in Europe, I get why it's in a neutral site. You know what I mean? Like those fans will travel. But like for this is brutal because PayPal Park is not like it's like some sort of like incredible soccer, you know, cathedral.
I think they're banking on NWSL does have a selling point beyond what like an MLS has, which is they've got the US women's national team fan base that they can bank on in a way that doesn't happen in MLS. It's still not a bright idea, but I do understand it a little bit more in a league like the NWSL. But yeah, they should be at home sites. It's just more fun at home sites.
Well, I mean, even didn't the Open Cup used to be on a neutral site as well, and then it
Yes.
just didn't get the amount of people there for those neutral sites that it was expecting.
Yeah.
Clay,
So anyway,
tell
so
us
my
about your
weekend.
Clay, your weekend.
Yeah, so I did some stats. I started building a little library for my wife because that's my fun type of Sunday. And I went to see Beauty and the Beast at TPAC. Had a good time with that. So kind of and then uh the mighty Indiana Hoosiers went to 11-0 for the first time ever. So this is a Big Ten football podcast, and we shouldn't lose sight of that. Steven setting the stage for a very fun one for you as well. Here in a
I know I'm
couple
gonna go. I think I'm
weeks.
gonna go this weekend as well. Actually, we're
Yeah.
absolutely a trap game, but Michigan won, beat Northwestern at Wrigley. By the way, they played the game at Wrigley. Yeah, they played a football game at Wrigley. They make fun of soccer for playing in baseball stadiums, football in baseball stadiums, please. But yeah, should be a fun time.
I had a good
Valair, how was
weekend.
your weekend?
I had a good one. I hung out with my girlfriend and some friends on Saturday. It was so weird not having any soccer to watch pretty much on Saturday. Like, just, I didn't care about the international games. I just tried to enjoy my weekend as much as possible without soccer. I still watch some soccer here and there, though. And then Sunday, I went to the Titans game, and that was the mighty Titans
So you
went
didn't
1-9. It was
so you didn't
great.
get to watch soccer on Saturday and you didn't get to watch football on Sunday. That's rough.
Hey, I watched something on Sunday. Yeah, I think I'm often reminded of how big the NFL is in this market and in America as a whole. Because I'll tell you what, if Nashville SC played like that, you guys might be the only ones showing up to the stadium. But they had thousands of people show up to the Titans, which is good to see. I like teams sticking with their team, fans sticking with their teams. And again, I was there, and I've been a Titans fan since as long as I've learned what this game is. Very unfortunate for me and others, but enough about the Titans. That's a losing team, and I don't want to talk about them. Yes, Steven.
As Valair mentioned, we do have a lot of topics to discuss this week that were dropped. Of course, we'll talk about it in the next segment. We'll come to the calendar changes that are coming with MLS. I'm sure that'll be an extremely interesting discussion because I believe we all have differing viewpoints on it, and I'm very curious to see where that conversation goes. We'll talk about that in the second segment. But for the first time ever, Nashville SC has decided to release news before we start the podcast. I think we could go back through history, and the news is always right after we record or the day after.
The only thing more surprising than me seeing that roster decisions tweet coming out was that Sam Surge goal against Club America. I was like, oh my God.
Well,
It actually happened.
We appreciate the fact that these news are out, and maybe Clay, you wanna walk us through the decisions real quick.
Well, no. Let's not. I want to walk through the week last week because it started last week with the announcement that Walker Zimmerman.
Well, it wasn't
is
an
not.
announcement. It was reported by Tom Bogert that Walker Zimmerman will not be returning with Nashville SC. The announcement wasn't made till today, but yes, go on,
I
Steven.
mean, when Bogart reports
Okay,
it, it's basically an announcement.
yeah, pretty much. If you put it on the Atmos out there, it's kind of an announcement per se. But thank you for really
No,
being
it's not.
focused. It's an announcement by Tom Bogart that Walker Zimmerman's
Okay,
not going to be back next season.
Tom Bogart reported. Okay, you know what? Whatever. Sure, it's an announcement. Move on. I'm not.
But Walker, it's something that we predicted. Of course, Walker Zimmerman not being back for the season next season. They did not renew his contract, or it even seems like have any sort of contract discussions with Walker Zimmerman when it comes to him coming back. It's been a turn of the tide. We knew this was going to be a multi-year rebuild for Nashville SC, and there's a couple other decisions that were made throughout the roster decisions that kind of keep track, that keep in line with that. But I do think we need to talk about Walker Zimmerman not being a part of this squad. Like, it's easy to kind of have that refresh of new players, and it's very nice, but we have to consider what Walker Zimmerman has done for this squad in particular throughout the years. Literally our first goal scorer in MLS history. Like, what was your guys' first thoughts when you saw that Walker Zimmerman was not on the squad?
Well, first off, yes, it was pretty much telegraphed, if only from what he was being paid. He was no longer a DP defender. He wasn't really a dependable every game starter, and hasn't been, more than just a year. I mean, he's missed a lot of time due to international commitments and due to injury over the last few years. And ultimately, he's an MLS 2.0 type of signing. Like, he helped out Nashville really well, but if you're spending DP money on a defender, you're probably not evaluating your roster the same way that you need to in this current era of Nashville SC, which I think everyone would agree on that. I mean, Gary Smith came from a different era of playing in MLS and coaching in MLS, and that sort of team construction does work, but we saw the limitations of that sort of team construction over the last few years, and I think that became evident that spending that type of money on a defender, especially a defender who wasn't really an every game starter the last couple of years, becomes hard to justify. When you factor in the likelihood that the team is going to go with a 2DP model going forward, I don't know that that's necessarily confirmed, but everyone seems to think that's the case. Then you can't have 3DPs. And so you're not getting rid of Hadi, you're not getting rid of Sam, but Walker's at the end of his contract. It's not really worth renewing, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So it made sense that he was gone. And it's unfortunate, losing, a guy who was an original in terms of MLS, but there wasn't really a good argument for keeping him around.
Yeah, and I would add to that, just say, like, this is a two-party conversation, right? I mean, it's what the club wants, obviously, but it's very much what Walker wants with him being a free agent. I don't think anybody would blame him or blame anybody who is a free agent to go out there and explore what's out there and figure out where. Look, this is a finite amount of years you can play as a top professional athlete. And if you want to maximize your earnings for you and your family during that time, I don't think that should be looked down upon. And I'm not saying this is what Walker did. I don't even, from what we were hearing, it didn't look like Nashville really, were offering much or at all to him. So maybe, Nashville just, it was time to move on, like Clay was saying. But overall, I think for him, you got to look at it, he's got maybe 2 more years at this level, maybe 2 more years after that to play in his career as a whole. That will put him at 37 years old. I mean, not many 37-year-olds are playing out there in MLS starting every day, right? So I think for him as well, it's a big consideration. This next contract is going to be smaller, obviously, but it will be the last time he has an opportunity to get a big quote unquote
Yeah.
contract when it comes to MLS. So,
Well,
yeah.
And it seems like too that he is. I mean, even from the Tom Bogart reporting that like Walker Zimmerman will be one of the top, if not the top
Yeah.
free agent available in MLS this off season, where those, I mean, especially center backs that are extremely well versed and needed, like he's going to get paid in some instance. I don't know if it's going to be DP money, but he's still going to get paid in a way
Right.
that Nashville would not be able to compensate him.
And that's the thing. Like he was the highest paid defender for 2 or 3 years while he was in Nashville, and I don't think that we're gonna see that money for a defender anytime soon. To be honest with you, in MLS, I will say if you look at his peer group, quote unquote peer group, like an Aaron Long or a Tim Ream, those players are about $1 million or so a year, which is still again a really good salary for MLS to give a defender. Currently, Miles Robinson is no longer a DP, but he's at 1.6 million max dam for Cincinnati. So I don't think it's gonna be. I think for Walker, he's probably gonna be looking at that TAM range, which is anywhere between 900 to 1.6. But I don't see anybody giving him a DP deal, and I don't see him accepting anything below the TAM threshold. You know, maybe if there are no other offers, he would, but that's kind of the range that I'm envisioning for him.
And to be fair to the deal that he did have, like I don't want to denigrate it. It's something that made sense at the time. He wasn't just he wasn't just the league's best defender who became available and Nashville gave him that type of money. He's arguably one of the best defenders that has ever played in the league who became available in the prime of his career. So it made sense at the time, but it does not make sense anymore at his age. That to clarify what I was saying previously.
Yeah, I think what
Absolutely.
Steven said earlier, he provided during that period. It's not like he wasn't, he wasn't
Yeah.
he was injured more than you would like him to be, but he was still providing and playing. And I do want to
Yeah.
mention that Nashville is looking to get younger as a whole, just based on these decisions that we're going to go through. And one of the guys that Nashville has been heavily linked with, nothing is confirmed yet, is Maxwell Waledzi. He's a Ghanaian player currently playing in Norway. So following sort of that Scandinavian track of Eddie Taxon and Patrick Yazbek, and
And Honey Mukhtar.
Ahmed Qasim as well, obviously. So Maxwell Waledzi, who grew up in Ghana but has been playing really well in Norway. I think that's a really easier transition when you think about somebody who's gone from Norway to America versus somebody who's gone from Ghana to America. Just culturally, in terms of even the weather and stuff like that. He has also played in Portugal, so he has a good bit of experience moving around. But he's still a younger player. He's 24-year-old. He's center back. So I think there's a clear message there that Nashville SC is trying to get younger, and you'll see it throughout these decisions as we go through.
And this is also a player that was best of 11 in Norway this year, in terms of how good of a center back he was. I do feel like Mike Jacobs, because I do this in FIFA, he just sent one of his scouts to Norway, and all of the younger players that pop up that have high potential, it's like, oh, let's just pick that one for cheap because this is great. But it seems so far to be working out for Nashville in the way that they are moving.
Well, and I think if you're Mike Jacobs, you have a bit of a checkered record with international signings, and you have had success coming out of Scandinavia. So it's, it makes sense to go back to the well. And by the way, there are other teams that are now going to that same well after the success that Nashville's had. So it is, it's interesting, and I think it's also worth noting that Waledzi has higher praise in Norway than some of the previous signings had in that league before they came over. So he's the highest profile signing to come out of that league to Nashville, provided that it happens.
Also reported and announced last week, but confirmed today with the roster announcements, is Joe Willis's option is not being picked up, which was then, the club did a very good job of, I think, just announcing his departure and thanking Joe for the work that he has done. I think this podcast, it's easy for us that we've always been a very heavy pro Joe Willis podcast. I think we absolutely,
Except
all
for
three
when
of us.
Valair and I tried to get him replaced 2 years ago.
Yeah, besides that one, I never did. You guys did for sure, though. When it comes to the work that Joe Willis has done, this one I'm sad. I understand it, but I'm definitely sad about it because I think he's going to get a lot more slack. For I think he got a lot of slack this year that was completely undeserved on his performances. I thought he had a terrific year, but again, this team has a direction of moving younger, and that's something it looks like that it's going to continue through this rebuild.
And I think for Willis, it's also another thing where it's time. You know, it's in a regular expansion team. Most expansion teams, these goodbyes are happening a year, 2 years, max 3, 4 years in the club history. The fact that these goodbyes are happening 6 years after Nashville joined MLS is actually a testament to how good these players are and how successful Nashville has been overall in these 6 years. So I think that's something to keep in mind, that a lot of these guys, if you look at St. Louis, if you look at Austin, if you look at all these expansion sides, teams are not sticking with the same core for 6 years. It very rarely happens. So I think this is just the right time to move on from these players, whether it's Walker, but currently we're talking about Joe Willis, somebody who I would say has been underrated throughout his time in Nashville. I think he helped Nashville a lot. It is something, that goalkeepers are just hard to evaluate. I think a lot harder than outfield players. And what it comes down to is that someone who is at that age, I think he's 37, who grew up in an era and played in an era where goalkeepers were meant to stop shots, and that's that. And to be fair to him, he does really well at that. And that is the most important thing a goalkeeper does. However, right now, goalkeepers are a player as well, are an outfield player as well, and they need to be good on their feet. And to be fair to Joe Willis, he's improved tremendously in that area, but it's not his game. And based on how Nashville have been playing, they need somebody who that's their game. And this is a problem that teams have been dealing with ever since Guardiola went to Manchester City and got Joe Hart out of the team. And there was a huge, controversy around it because they want a goalkeeper who plays with his feet. So I don't think this is disrespectful to Joe Willis. I think he might still be able to get a couple years out of Joe Willis, honestly, somewhere else maybe. But at the moment, it was the right time to move on for Nashville SC, and I think they made the right decision.
And one of the things, and this is a kind of roundabout way of praising BJ more than it is about Joe, but like one of the things that's the most impressive about the last year or so with BJ Callahan is that he's taken this core and instilled a different style of playing using players that don't exactly line up to exactly what he wants to do. And Joe Willis is a prime example of that. And I think that to come in as a new coach and keep all three DPs, keep your goalkeeper, keep your same guys in the same positions, and manage better results is something that does not happen and for a lot of coaches in this league. And when you saw that Schwalke get signed to a 2+1 deal last year, you kind of figured that Joe wasn't who they really wanted at goalkeeper, and it does appear that they're going to give Schwalke a go at being the number one.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's some interest there, but that does mean that another goalkeeper will be joining Nashville SC. I'm pretty sure. I mean, that usually run with three goalkeepers. Xavier Valdez option got exercised, so while talking about this, let's go ahead and cover that one. So that's Schwalke and Valdez are the two goalkeepers currently with Nashville SC roster. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised. Actually, I'm expecting a third signing. One would say in the goalkeeper position, but Elm on Discord did ask us about sort of about which players are underrated that you would argue to keep, and which players he used the word overrated you would argue to upgrade on. That question came on the Discord. So is there anybody? Would you include Walker or I guess Willis, or do you have any names there for Elm?
Well, I mean, for me, and this one was kind of I understand why it didn't happen because of his wages, but like I would have liked to have seen Brugman stay on the squad for I think he offers like the thing that we've talked about on this show, and honestly, I was talking about on Discord earlier, is having personnel that you can adjust to the way a game state is or the way that you're being played. Because sometimes Nashville needs two guys out there to break up the midfield and destroy things, and sometimes Nashville's going to have a lot of the ball and is going to need to build out. And Brugman was really good in certain cases with that over the past season, but at his wages, it was kind of hard to keep him. But I would have liked Nashville to have found a way to see if they could get maybe a little bit more out of Gaston Brugman next season, even if I kind of understand and honestly, a little bit of part of me agrees with letting him go.
Well, and I think stuff like Gaston Bruggeman is obviously going to be from a financial standpoint. Also, seen where this team specifically is kind of leaning towards when it comes to spending that money, because Gaston would have been, I think his option would have been a pretty large sum, if I'm not correct, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
1.2 million. Yeah, would have been.
So it's it's one of those things specifically where well, let's go through them first. Which ones are exercised, which ones were declined. So exercise: Dan Lovitz, Alex Mouille, Rubens Pacius, who spent his year at Tampa Bay, and Xavier Valdez. Declined would be Brian Acosta, Gaston Brugman, Maximus Eck, Julian Gaines, Wyatt Meyer, Tate Schmidt, and then Joe Willis. And then out of contract would have been Teal Bunbury, Taylor Washington, who's retired, and then Walker Zimmerman. Again, the ones that were announced that are departing the club so far from the club would be Joe Willis and Walker Zimmerman. Those ones seem like ones, obviously, if the club announces it, that they are not looking forward to putting stuff towards. There's still possibilities for the other ones to come back. In those instances, they didn't announce. Gaston hasn't posted anything that thank you for my time in Nashville, because I'm sure they're discussing what that contract might be.
We
I don't know.
Don't know. We don't know for sure that there are any confirmed talks between any of these. So in the past years, sometimes Nashville SC would put on a statement, hey, we're negotiating with this person. They don't have to say that. There's no obligation to say that. But I think last year they put a statement about negotiating with Josh Bauer to come back. And he ended up coming back and accepting that. So again, they might be talking to some of these players with their options declined, but we don't know that for a fact.
I imagine when they say there are currently conversations, that means that they're pretty close. Mm-hmm. And so I would be surprised if there weren't conversations with Brugman, but I imagine they might be, because there's no way they value him at 1.2 million. And I imagine Brugman knows that. And I think we would agree that Brugman could probably get a pretty good salary in MLS, and Nashville might not be willing to meet that.
Yeah, and I think for like Brugman and Acosta, this is probably, and obviously like Joe Willis, I think this is pretty much telling because of their age and Nashville SC not being interested in signing them, at least not at the numbers that they would agree on. But for guys like Eck and Julian Gaines and maybe even Wyatt Meyer, these are younger guys, right? And Nashville does have a second team where these guys spend a lot of time playing. So just because they're not with Nashville SC specifically doesn't mean they won't be with Huntsville. And you never know, maybe they'll climb their way back up. Obviously the Huntsville squad is also getting younger, so it's not just Nashville SC getting younger. So I mean, again, we don't know anything, but I'm just saying keep that as an option. And then I think these things happen pretty quickly. So if Nashville can bring one of these people back and they want to bring one of these players back, they would. But I think to answer the question about underrated or overrated, I do want to talk about two players who I do think kind of are underrated, who got their options exercised, and that's Dan Lovitz and Alex Mouille. I think for both of them, they've had dips in forms, especially Dan Lovitz. He's had times where I don't think many Nashville fans expected that option to be picked up before 2025 started. But the way he played in 2025, I think, really showcased what he's capable of. And for a guy, a veteran like him, to have another year like that would be amazing for him. And I think he did really well in 2025. And for Alex Mouille, he's been a consistent player for Nashville SC. Every big game for Nashville SC, he's been a starter. No matter who's coaching this team, he's been a starter. And I just think that's a testament to him. And I know he gets a lot of flack for maybe his on-the-ball ability, but I do think they both deserve this sort of option being exercised. Next year's next year. We'll see what happens when that contract is over. But I don't think many people can have complaints about those two.
Alex will may get hits for his on the ball ability, but he has the best assist of the last like 3 years for Nashville SC. What I will say with Lovitz is I also think there's some element of absence making the heart grow fonder. I think that period of play where Nashville didn't really have serviceable fullbacks, it made a lot of sense for that Lovitz can do the job. He had a good season. The system does suit him better, but like him being out may have for sure locked in this option pickup.
Well, and so Valair, I do think you're right. Nobody should be mad specifically about Nashville picking up the options of Dan Lovitz and Alex Moyle. I would agree with you there. I don't agree that those two have locked in spots as starters for next year. I don't believe they have. I don't think we're going to go into a new year with a 34-year-old turning 35-year-old left back in a team that's getting younger. And Alex Moyle in a team that you are looking to be better on the ball with and starting Alex Moyle in that position. Like, I think there is going to be a lot more competition in those spots where there wasn't last year. And I think that's the reason why those options make sense.
I think that's fair. I can't see, because Nashville doesn't currently have another left back on their roster. I can't see who would take that position from Dan Lovitz. However, Nashville will be adding a good amount of players in the offseason.
I think that's where I'm saying. I think I'm mainly saying the adding of the players has to make sense.
I think Alex Moyle always finds a way to start. We've been saying this since January 2020 when he signed. Summer 2020 when he signed. He has somehow find a spot to start in, even if it's right back or whatever. So I'm not really I'm not going to bet against that just because history has told us otherwise. I do think you bring up a really good point with Dan Lovitz, because fullback is a position of need for Nashville SC that I would think they'll be going pretty hard in this offseason to try to cover both sides, both right back, because Julian Gaines' option was declined, meaning Andy Nahar doesn't have a backup either. Josh Bauer did a really good job covering for both fullbacks, but he's a center back, and I think Nashville view him as a center back, so I doubt that he will play much on either side. But yeah, I would say fullback is probably going to be a position they'll reinforce in, and yeah, maybe Dan Lovitz, in his last year, doesn't start every game, and then Nashville kind of moves on after that. But this is the time to bring somebody in, because you don't want to bring them in after Dan Lovitz has left. So that's kind of something to keep in mind.
Well, there certainly wasn't a lack for competition on the wing this year. It's just that nobody could win in the competition.
Yeah.
I think the other need to look at, and it is weird because I do feel like Nashville has a good core already in place, but I think what they're really looking at is getting some variance in like what's available. And so having another striker, obviously, I mean, that's I think the big one. And then I do think that they need to have some other options in central midfield as well, which is a place that Alex Moyle can also play. But I think they need to have some sort of playmaking ability in center midfield that can supplement the things that Yazbek and Tagseth can do. Who both have the ability to pass. Like, I'm not trying to denigrate them, but somebody that maybe is a little bit more progressive thinking.
And obviously we will have a lot of off season to talk about those possible moves, potential moves. I'm sure there's going to be a lot coming through even in the next month or so when it comes to the way that Nashville is moving through. But we do have some other news to talk about as well, and it is league-wide news. And we're going to talk about that next right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Pharmaceutical Soccer, of course, at PharmaSoccer on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We talked about the decisions. We talked about the moves. Those are all being looked at and, written about on 615soccer.com. So please make sure you continue to subscribe to that. Just because the season is over doesn't mean that they are not covering, Nashville and the sport the way that it needs to be done. Valair and Ben are always in the know about what's going on, so please make sure you do follow 615soccer.com, subscribe. Would love for you to be a part of it. It's great. It's fun stuff.
And shout out to Chris Ivy and Jeff, who've put out some good content recently as well. Chris has a lot of stuff out there as well. So we have a good amount of writers, and I think my favorite thing about the 615 Soccer Adventure has been the Discord community, which if you're a paid subscriber, you get in. Every morning there's a discussion about Nashville SC and what players, and sometimes I can't even catch up with all the messages. So shout out to everybody on the Discord. I think that's the most fun of being a fan for me. It's like whenever I'm in these circles with other fans and we can sit down and talk, whether it's Arsenal, Titans, or whatever. So I'm assuming it's the same thing for Nashville SC and folks here.
And this is the Chris time of the year, because when it comes to money and to roster rules and things changing, I think Ivy's like little lawyer antennas go off, and and he starts putting a lot of stuff out there that offers a perspective that I think none of us can offer.
Also, pharmasoccer.com for merch and all of that, which, by the way, we do have to shout out. There have been times in this show where we have been critical of some stuff, especially, with club, all that type of things, where we'll be honest about a lot of situations about between us and the discussions of the club. I want to say thank you very much. The club went out of their way to send both me, Clay, and Valair a thank you for our 300th episode. And I realized what I said after I said it. Shut up. The three of us a gift for our 300th episode. So thank you very much from the NSC Comms team. That was a delicious cookie. Did you guys finish yours?
No,
Yes.
I did as much as possible, but I started sharing it with other people. Had to throw some of it away, unfortunately, but delicious nonetheless.
Yeah, thank you so
You hear
much for
that?
that.
You hear that?
NSC
Valair did
Comms.
not cherish it.
No, I did. I ate as much as I could, but you know what? Cookie cakes are delicious. Let's move on.
I did appreciate that it was a cookie cake as well. It's like they knew I'm not a big actual ice cream or cake fan, and they sent me a cookie cake, so it made me happy. So it's like they knew.
Okay,
Anyways,
cool.
MLS news that we have a discussion to talk about over last week. There's been discussions, and we've talked about it on this show about MLS changing the way they do scheduling. And Thursday there was a vote, and it was officially confirmed that MLS is going to be moving to a fall spring model starting in the 27-28 season after the World Cup. Does anybody kind of want to go into the details about it, a little bit more thoroughly, because it does come with some changes to the way the divisions are being done. Which one of you kind of wants to take that up?
I mean, I guess I can. Essentially, in the near term, nothing changes. MLS will play the same schedule in 2026. When it gets to 2027, there will be a sprint schedule, they're calling it, which will hopefully be called the MLS is back tournament. I'm sure it will be a wild set of 14 games. And then after that, in the late summer of 2027, the new season will start. There will be an approximately 2-month break that'll kind of cover December, January, part of December, all of January, part of February, and then it will start up again. And they are saying that they will avoid playing extreme cold weather games. They have promised things before, but that is what they are saying that they are going to do to avoid the weather concerns that I think people justifiably have about some of these locations. But I think I think somebody is 91% of the games will take place in the current MLS window, which honestly is much better than I thought was going to be the case. So they did well about aligning it. You're basically moving your championship window to this spring.
Yeah, so I think there are going to be some drawbacks to this, and we shouldn't like gloss over those necessarily. However, I think there should be a valid way of looking at the drawbacks at the same time that you look at the positives here. So I think for me, the first thing I would look at is on field sort of quality improvement, and the on-field quality improvement is a tremendous jump here because aligning with those European windows essentially means that you are able to sign players at the beginning of your season. You are also able to keep the window open for a little bit longer and get those players in. And what that means is that if a player, what, Steven?
Nothing. Please continue.
Okay.
No,
If
we're
a
letting you
player
finish.
I'm letting you finish.
if a player is unable to sign anywhere, if Nashville SC or a team in MLS want to bring them in after the Premier League window has closed, now you can finally do that. And that's something you haven't been able to do because the MLS window always closed before the Premier League window did. So then what happens is that these players end up going to Turkey or some of the other places in the world that have a longer window. And now MLS will be in these discussions. That's the number one thing. The other thing is that if you don't want to take my word for it, you go and look at the reporting. Every chief soccer officer in MLS, every single one of them has had nothing but positive things to say about this change because it makes their life easier and they can sign better players and bring better players into this league. This is them. This is the people signing the players. This is not me. This is not another journalist. Go and look at their work. I believe today Tom Bogert on The Athletic put out something where he talked to 11 different chief soccer officers. I've talked to people in the Nashville SC office. They're in favor of this too. Trust me, on the field, there are no negatives to this. There are only positives to this on the field. I just got to say that.
I don't disagree with that, and I don't. My problem is that unless you're going to actually commit resources to improving the rosters, then it's talk. And the third DP rule has been around for a decade, and it hasn't. You've added TAM, you've added cutesy things, but you haven't made a real concerted effort to buy better players, and moving the window without making the necessary financial adjustments does seem to be like a way to avoid to do the thing that everyone knows you need to do to improve the league. And that's the part I agree that it does make things easier, but it annoys me to hear that while still having these sort of gimmicky cutesy rules to avoid paying players essentially what you need to pay to be a real competitor in the world market.
Well, and I think that's what frustrates me, is that to me, this is just a Band-Aid for what are bigger problems specifically in the league. We're talking about legitimizing the league and that this change legitimizes the league. Yet, Valair, did any of the chief soccer officers talk about the playoffs and like, had they figured out how they're going to do that yet? Was that talked about in this change?
Yeah. Well, it's not part of this change, but they are looking into new ways of doing the playoffs and the regular season, like in terms of how the competition itself will be played. Yes.
Right, but you know what I mean? But they're looking into it, just like they're looking into
Well,
a
what
bunch
do
of
you
things.
want?
We're
They're
like,
making decisions 3 years in advance. If you want, yes, I don't like the playoffs format, but that doesn't mean you stop your changes for the rest of it because you don't like the playoff format. Like that.
but like it's a
What?
Band-Aid specifically of changing on the
I
legit.
don't
Like you're
think
talking
that's
about.
what he's saying.
I'm just talking about specifically the legitimacy, like the reason why this change was made is to legitimize we want to make the MLS more legitimate in the world market. Is that the main goal of this change? Yes or no?
The main goal is to get better players. So yes, let's say yes. Yes.
Like, so you think the number one thing for MLS to do that was to change the schedule?
That's
You think
one
that
of
was
the
the
top.
one thing?
I would say one of the top 3, maybe top 2 of the things. Yes. To be a player in the world market. Let me explain this to you. Okay, let me just let's say this. Ake Loba, Jonder Cadiz, even Shaq Moore to an extent. All these players, Shaq Moore is the most prominent example of this. Shaq Moore couldn't join Nashville because his club wanted to keep him, and MLS was already happening while his club wanted to keep him. But Nashville had the money to pay. Nashville had the money to pay him. Nashville had the money to pay the club. But because the calendars didn't align, Nashville had to play half a season without Shaq Moore and without a right back because they had sold Alistair Johnston. Now, yes, Nashville could have planned better. They could have had a better right back. I totally agree with you. But for a team to have the money and they couldn't pay, and this is not a DP. This is not somebody who's even a TAM level player, right? So I think when you're talking about these things, there are real life examples when MLS teams were able to go and grab a player from Europe with the right money, but because the schedules didn't align, they couldn't do that. And because the contract changes. So there, again, in terms of player acquisitions in terms of on the field quality, this improves it tremendously. And there's no argument against that I will accept. However, there are arguments against it for other things off the pitch, and I will accept those arguments, even if I don't agree with them.
I just don't agree that it improves it tremendously if you don't make the financial side of it worth it. That's the part where that's
telling you right
now,
there have been times without the financial things where teams have had the money to sign players and couldn't because of the schedule. So yes, I agree that there should be more, but this in itself is a big step towards that.
It seems like a scapegoat. Can they and maybe I'm naive in this, would they have the ability to change the windows instead of changing the entire schedule? Could they change the windows of when they do it?
To an extent, yeah, but then, I mean, like, what's the point? Then just open the window for the whole season and let people do whatever they want. I mean, no, that
I mean, that would be sick, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think that would make much sense. So okay, you haven't told me anything. The only negative you've listed so far is that you think there are better things to improve before this one. About this specific change, what's the biggest negative for you?
I think that's not what Steven's saying. I think what he's trying to say is that MLS needs a big picture way of approaching something to improve the league. And we were kind of hoping if that was the case, it would be more than we're going to change divisions and now we're going to play on this calendar, but there's no real news on roster changes, which I think everyone agrees that there needs to be roster construction changes significantly across the league. And so the idea, because what we were all hoping for last offseason, right, was all right, Miami's done all this stuff. Surely they're going to change the rules and let teams spend more. And then they didn't. And I think that is what Steven's actually more concerned about, is that they've made this big change as a way of covering for not doing the change that we know needs to happen in order for the league to take the next step. So I think that's what it's based in. I don't think it's based in this is negative. I think this is small in terms of everything else that it needs to happen in conjunction with other things. So, I think is where a lot of the consternation comes from.
A couple of things. First of all, I think you guys are way more optimistic about MLS than I am. I am pretty much a realist here, and I know this league makes changes very slowly, and they are very risk averse rather than they don't take risks, and this is shown throughout history. So I know a lot of things we want to change in the league, they are not going to be changed. So that's first. Second, you're looking at this change, and if this change in itself is not a negative for you, then I think you accept what you get. When just last year or 2 years ago, they started putting the roster profiles and telling us what players' contracts are. Yes, that wasn't the be-all of it, and you can still criticize the league for all the other stuff, but I'm glad they did that. I'm glad they changed the roster, even if there's more to I just take things as they come. Sometimes my ambition and your ambition and pretty much all the fans' ambition doesn't match the ambition of the league, because the league just is a slow improving league. And that's what it's been since 1996. They're very risk averse. Actually, from 96 to like 2000, they were not risk averse, and things turned out really badly. And then they've been risk averse ever since. And things are improving in MLS. They're just not improving at the rate that you and I would like. So I think I understand your bigger point, and I just don't see this as like this big negative, I guess. That's all.
Well, and mind you, I'm only sticking with your point of the on-field stuff. Does it legitimize the way that people? Sure. But I think the off-field stuff affects way more the legitimacy of it in the U.S.
I want to get to the off-field stuff real quick, but I do want to make this point because this is something that has annoyed me a little bit about the way that it's talked about, which is I do think that it is worth noting that MLS was not the only summer league in the world, and it wasn't the highest rated summer league in the world. Brazil
Nope.
was, and Brazil does have the most World Cups ever. So the idea that it's a different type of league and it's apples to oranges, but I just want to make that known that MLS was not an outlier in playing in the summer. It was an outlier in regards to Europe and other parts of the world, but there were other similar leagues that were playing at the same window. But off the field, there are some real concerns off the field. I don't share in a lot of those concerns, but I do understand why they exist.
So what is the biggest concern? I think is the weather, right, Steven? That's like the big one.
Well, both. I'm going to say weather in time of play, like specifically. We'll start with weather. Obviously, there was something that did come out where the northern clubs were looking for compensation based on the loss of revenue that they are going to get during this time, which is going to happen. The clubs in the south did not agree to that, so they did not. So there were not only were there weather concerns, it was legitimized in the discussions between the owners that there were weather concerns.
Yeah,
right.
I think if the northern clubs want compensation for that, then Dallas and Houston should have been getting compensation for the last playing in June, July, and August for the last however many
but
years.
You're still playing in June, July, and August. Like
You're not playing
now,
in June and July. No,
you're playing in July.
Sorry, you're playing in July. Yeah, but you're not playing. Yeah. I will say this
So
though.
now you're starting the season in 95-degree weather.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. You're not okay. First of all, the games have been going on in the summer, like we've been talking about, so it's not as big of a deal. And however, they're gonna reduce the amount of games happening at that weather. That's first. Second of all, the northern clubs, there's a way around it where you can, get around this without them hosting every game ever in the cold. Third of all, we don't know if the weather is going to be always bad because it was November in Nashville this weekend and it was 70 degrees. So let's chill, first and foremost, because I've lived in this city for 17 years. And Nashville is just, not every team is in the north.
But you're in Nashville. That's different.
The weather concerns don't matter in this chunk of the country because
it doesn't.
Essentially, it doesn't operate in crazy extremes. But the part that kills me about the weather thing is a lot of these scheduling things, especially on this end of the season, have been through MLS's own making. Like the majority of MLS Cup finals have not happened in December. A lot of them haven't even happened in November. Different league then, of course, but it was only a few years ago where the Cup final was on November 5th. And so they've created these competitions that have made the season longer, that have led to later playoffs, or they've added 2 whole game rounds to the playoffs for no reason. But the thing that sticks out for me, and it's just more funny for me, is a lot of the dead enders, I guess, in the U.S. soccer world were like aghast at a national team game being played in Minnesota in February. And now MLS is saying they're not going to play regular season games in Minnesota in February. But I think at some point that is going to happen because it's the way the schedule is going to break down. They're going to try to avoid it. But I was like, it's kind of funny that this was a problem like when the U.S. was playing up there, but it's not a problem.
Well, but here's the thing.
The club up. I thought it was stupid, but that it was a problem when the U.S. was playing up there, to be clear. But it just makes me laugh. It's all.
A couple of things. First of all, the first game back won't be until after the Super Bowl weekend. So different time in February 1st. Second of all, if it's cold, if there's a game scheduled in Minnesota in December 3rd, or for some reason, let's just say there is one, and if it's cold, it's so much easier to move that game because you have a whole other half of the season to be played later than it is right now if you go to Minnesota in November and it's the end of the regular season. And if that game needs to be moved for some reason, you don't really have time to move it because the playoffs start in a week or two after that. So there is room for opportunity there. No league season goes by without at least 1 or 2 games being moved. If it's that bad, you can move it. And instead of having 2 weeks to make up that game, now you have 4 months to make up that game. So there is room for improvement there, and there's room for things to be moved. I think it's time for us to move to the next thing because, again, in this part of the country, we don't really care about the weather a whole lot, I guess. I think the big thing that folks are talking about are the that the schedule, and how it goes against college football or whatever. I want to start off by saying instead of 17 head-to-head weekends with college football, now MLS will have 11 head-to-head weekends with college football. Very important thing. Instead of your playoffs being in the heart of NFL playoffs and the heart of college football, now your playoffs are in May, so there's a lot more sort of eyes on MLS there. So I think that's a big plus for me.
That whole part of it doesn't really bother me. Like I said, my concern is mostly based on this only being the only thing that they enact. I will say on a personal note, and this is just a personal note, as someone who has been watching this league for certainly longer than both of you guys, and I don't mean that to lord it over you. It's just history here. One of my favorite parts of the summer before I had a local team was spending June going to away games because I work in education and July is tough. Um, and so like I loved traveling in MLS in May and June after the school year ended to go see games. So there's a personal thing where I'm like, that's kind of a bummer that I'm not going to be able to do that anymore. And I think that there are a lot of parents of children that might be a little bit upset about missing that stuff too in the summer. That's not everyone. That's not a reason to keep the schedule the same way. But just on a personal note, I like absolutely understand being upset at maybe losing a staple of your summer for the last 30 years of MLS. It's still in the
Absolutely.
summer, but it's in a different part of summer.
And it's not just college football. It's NFL. It's baseball. That's, April, May is right when baseball season is starting. It's NBA. It's NHL. It's high schools. It's middle schools. It's following all of these where you're right, Clay. Everybody has had their schedules throughout the summer that was soccer season. I don't think
It's just
anybody
going to be a
actually
change.
knows. For MLS.
If that was soccer season, we would have seen a big crowds selling out stadiums every summer. You act like June and July are like sellouts at Geodis. I've been there. It's dead. Come on now. Come on.
But it's sellouts.
I think
it's sellouts in other places.
I think June. I think June is. I think July. I agree. Like July is whenever we see it die down because of it being dog days of summer and there's nothing going on. I do think right after the school year there is a bump, but I understand. Like this is not a huge amount of people I'm talking about. I was just talking about me personally. Like it does affect.
I
lot of people.
I feel like if you're taking this again, I'm telling you for college football, because I said the college football thing because the South right now here where we live, college football is the biggest sport based on what I've seen in my life. So having Nashville SC not go head to head against college football as much, I think is a big positive for Nashville SC. Having its playoffs not be around there, I think is a huge positive for Nashville SC. Other parts of the country, I understand, but we are a Nashville show, so that's why I said college football thing.
Well, but I think it's going to be interesting because we don't like your guys' opinions are that it's not going to conflict that much, but we don't know yet. You know what I mean? That's one of the things we don't know, and we don't know how much those other things are going to conflict with MLS.
Well, we know for a fact when college football is played, and we know when MLS is going to be played, and they're not going to conflict as much as they do currently.
Right, but we don't know about other sports specifically in the way that affects how Nashville and how any participation in MLS is going to be. We don't know yet. We don't understand, because a lot of the off-field stuff, I'm trying to find the best way to put it. We don't know a lot about it yet because it hasn't happened.
Well, but Steven, we also don't know what MLS is going to experience after the 2026 World Cup.
That's also true.
There's going to be, I mean, it would take something crazy to happen for MLS not to get an uptick in interest following a World Cup happening in the U.S. because that's how MLS started. So I think it would be, I understand your consternation, but I think as much as there's a takeaway, there's probably as much a coming in, and maybe the league achieving what it deems to be its final form schedule-wise after the World Cup is a good thing. Because ultimately, I think we all understand that MLS was probably going to have to switch at some point. Our issues are with a lot of the patio furniture around that switch. And if you're expecting to take a big uptick, that uptick should probably happen. It should probably happen in 26, 27, not 27, 28, if you're really going to be strategic about it. But it would make sense that that you would try and get to a a higher end version of yourself following a World Cup with an uptick in interest in the league.
Can I just have one last thing to say about this? Because I think we've done it now. I think we're done here. But I look, I just keep going back to this one. Is that 90%, over 90% of the season will be played at the same schedule that is being played currently. So if you are a season ticket holder anywhere in the world, I don't care if you're in Montreal or Minnesota or whatever, let's say 10% of that is changing, right? Out of that 10%, 5% will be at home. If you are canceling your season tickets because 5% of the games changed for your schedule, should you be having season tickets at this point? And that,
But are you going to?
In the North, it'll be more than 5% because they'll be moving them
20%. If you can't attend 3 games out of the home schedule.
But those games don't conflict. It's a lot easier to get season tickets from February to.
That is untrue. I went to Minnesota in February. Dude, I went to Minnesota in February and to watch Nashville SC there 3 years ago. I think they opened the season there, like late February. And it was regular season game, right? The first game I think Minnesota was hosting. It was miserable. I don't know what you're talking about. And that's the current schedule. So go complain about the current schedule. It was raining, snowing, and we had a huge delay because of a storm. All in the same game. And this was like mid-February, I think this game happened. So, I think they're already doing this.
Yeah, as long as they aren't scheduling up there, it won't really matter a whole lot because there would just be more of those days, Valair. So, as long as they aren't scheduling up there during the colder times, then it's not really much of a change at all.
I think it's going to be interesting. I personally think the off the field stuff is going to affect it a lot more than Valair thinks it does. I do think there is a lot of agreement in the fact that it does make some way. Valair thinks only positive. I don't think only positive for the on-field stuff to make the league more legitimate. And I think that's what the conversation is going to be for the next couple of years as this happens. And I do agree with Clay that I do think the conversation changes after the World Cup happens because of what that uptick is going to be for the league. That was a great discussion, guys. I appreciated that. I'm glad that we can have differencing of opinions and still have discussions on what it is. Thank you, Clay, for moderating that. And me and Valair yelling at each other. We have other things to discuss, some international stuff, as well as some local soccer news and some local soccer championships that we do need to talk about. We're going to do that next, right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer. And we are back right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer at PharmaSoccer on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. 615soccer.com. Spell it out. Become a subscriber. Would love to have you. Also, pharmasoccer.com for merch, all of that stuff. Season is ending. Make sure everybody knows that you are a U.S. Open Cup haver. And you can get a shirt that says that on pharmasoccer.com. So make sure you do that. We had a spirited discussion last segment. There was other news, though, regarding the changes, the schedule changes. Big from Apple TV. Valair, do you kind of want to talk about that before we get into the segment?
Yeah, so earlier this year, I guess, Apple TV Plus rebranded into Apple TV. So now there's this one thing, Apple TV. And within Apple TV, they've made different sort of sporting agreements with baseball, MLB, and Formula One as well coming up. One of those as well was MLS. However, MLS lived in its own MLS season pass. Now that will be gone and MLS will just be part of Apple TV. So if you have an Apple TV subscription, you'll be able to watch all MLS, no blackout, same thing. That wasn't the case earlier. You had to get a specific MLS sort of subscription. The good news is if you're a season ticket holder, which I'm assuming a lot of people listening to this are, you will continue to get those for free. And you will now get Apple TV for free, which is a really cool. So you're getting more bang for your buck for your season ticket, because earlier last year, for example, and since Apple started hosting MLS games, you would only get the season pass for free. But now you get all the shows and movies, which there are a lot of good stuff out there. So pretty good move, I think, overall, when you think about it.
Well, and it was kind of telegraphed when F1 signed a deal that with Apple TV for it to be part of Apple TV and not part of like a subscription setup like MLS. It kind of greased the wheels on the same thing happening for MLS. And if you're a soccer fan, what it also means is that there's a Peacock Apple TV bundle that has started happening in the last few months. So it means that for essentially $15 a month, you get most of the Premier League as well as MLS. In addition to everything else that Peacock and Apple TV have. So it turns into a much better market for the elusive casual fans that I'm not totally sure exist for MLS, but it's certainly a lot easier to draw them in now than it was a month ago. So it's a really positive move, but I think one that everyone kind of saw coming.
And there's another vote for MLS owners as well coming up in March. One of the things they're discussing is changing the template, I guess, of how the competition is played. Talks of having divisions and changing the playoffs and all that coming up. So we'll talk about it then, but that is on the agenda. That will change. It will, there's different sort of divisions, breakdowns, and stuff like that. Chris Ivy again did a really funny one on Twitter. I think you should check it out. Of like sponsored ones, but
Told you
all
it's
that
Chris
will
Ivy
be coming.
season.
Well, was that?
I told you it's Chris Ivy season.
It's
All the
Chris
legal
Ivy season. Yeah,
stuff.
this is where he
It is
thrives.
literally.
But yeah, those are the big sort of changes that will be discussed, and some of them are already confirmed, like Apple and the schedule change, and some will be upcoming. I'm sure we'll have you covered as they come.
Can you imagine if Apple would have had like a separate F1 pass or a separate MLB pass that you would have to subscribe to if you want that content specifically? That would have been insane.
Oh wait, we should also talk about a report came out that the Apple deal will be ending 3 years earlier, as well. That isn't confirmed yet, I believe. It's just reported by reputable sources, so we'll take that. But yeah, the deal is ending earlier, but MLS is getting a little bit more money, so I think it's fine.
It essentially means MLS gets more money. It ends earlier, but they also get to put themselves back on the media market 3 years earlier. And you would, if MLS would hope that their TV deal will have gone up quite a bit following the World Cup. So it's actually pretty good news for MLS in the near term if things go the way that they would like them to go.
International break at the current moment during this time. USA did play against Paraguay and beat Paraguay, which is kind of cool. I actually watched that match. US looked pretty good, actually. Seeing Gio Reyna back on the field is very nice to see. I think, and probably needed for the USMNT. Big matchup against Uruguay still coming
Scored
up,
a
though.
header, right?
Yes, he did score a header.
It's hard not to with a head that big.
I gotta say, I couldn't. I didn't watch the match. All I wanted to see was whether or not he would high five Sebastian Berhalter at any point. But I don't know if that happened or not. I never went back and checked. But I'm really invested in this Sebastian Berhalter Gio Reyna situation. I don't know if I am begging for anybody to come up with an update. I just want to know: did they hug? I don't know. What's happening?
I'm sure they hugged. It was the same thing when it was talked about when Weston McKennie got rumored to be hanging out with Kristen Pulisic's sister in Nashville. I don't know if we remember that.
That's not a topic we need to go down anymore other than just
I'm saying we were all looking at those two in Nashville, though, when that happened. It's the same thing. I'm not sure, Valair. Sorry, I did not pay attention.
It's okay. I think Pochettino said they've been talking to each other. So they used to be best friends. And then obviously everything happened in 2022, and I think they haven't spoken to each other since then. So it's a really hard life here.
There was also some World Cup qualifying going on throughout the time. Easily, I think the Ireland stuff is super cool. The 96th minute Ireland goal against Hungary for them to beat Portugal. And to beat Portugal with, of course, Ronaldo getting the best red card of all time and being absolutely shamed for it. Deserved. But
on a personal note, seeing Seamus Coleman not play for Everton for over a month and then be pretty all right for 2 games with Ireland, and now they might actually make a World Cup is pretty cool. I do a bit of a bummer for Guatemala, as they lost their World Cup dreams late against Panama, and that's who I've been openly rooting for to make their first World Cup, and it was real sad. I saw the kit man cleaning up the balls while crying after losing to Panama, but that is
Oof.
what it means. Unfortunately, one team has to go. And for those of you looking for more World Cup content, Valair,
Well, by the time this is out, you probably would know if Iraq made it or not to the interconfederation, playoffs. But I did a little video about it on Kickback Media, so check that out. It's on my Instagram and stuff too. So you'll be able to see it there. But Iraq, obviously, I'm very invested, and I was losing my mind on Tuesday. We somehow didn't win that game. We ended up with a 1-1 draw in the UAE, and now Iraq gets to host UAE in Basra down south. And if they win, they're through to the qualifiers and one more win away from the World Cup. They lose, it's game over. It's done again. So I will be not in the best mental state during that 90 minutes. I don't think, unfortunately, I'll be able to watch it because it's in 10 in the morning. But by the time this is coming out, you'll know where I'm at. And I'm just really hoping. I'm just really
Check out Valair's. Check out what should we be checking out?
you
Like,
can't tell how nervous he is right now.
Are you gonna live stream your mental state? Should I look
Dude,
for
I
the
can't even talk
obituaries?
about
Like,
it.
what should I look for?
I get sick to my stomach when I talk about it. I can't even think about it. I just have to let it happen. I'm choosing to let it happen. I might actually ignore it. I don't know.
Well, we don't know what's going to happen with Iraq yet, but we do know a team that did win their match, and that would be One Knox winning the USL League One championship. Shout out to Knoxville, Tennessee, and the work that they have done. Our friend Susanna Collins's Susanna Fuller's I was. Thank you, Valair, for correcting me mid sentence. Something to yell at Clay for doing earlier in the show that you just decided to do. Husband for winning that championship. Apparently they had a crowd of 6,500 there, which is crazy for a USL League One game.
Yeah, it's a League One record attendance. And you know what? Good on Nashville for winning the U.S. Open Cup, because otherwise they wouldn't have the first trophy in the state of Tennessee. So, just really, really good news for One Knox. First year for Ian Fuller as the manager there. Will he be there for year 2? I think is a good question. But ultimately, it is good for Nashville if the whole state is going out and supporting local soccer. It is good for the state of Tennessee. It is good for everyone. More soccer is good. Less soccer is bad. So I'm very excited about them, but they weren't the only team to get a big win this weekend. So just want to take a quick moment. This is your local soccer roundup now. Lipscomb went away to Mississippi State to win in the first round of the NCAA tournament. That's a huge win. Those things don't always happen for schools like Lipscomb, so you have to shout them out. I don't believe it's their first. I'm pretty sure they won a first round game not that long ago too. But and then of course Vanderbilt, one of the favorites to win the national title, did also win over Tennessee Tech to advance to the second round. So shout out to Lipscomb and Vandy, who are holding it down for college women's soccer here. Unfortunately, the mighty Purple Aces did lose in the conference title game in front of a record crowd in Evansville. But that's not really local, but I'm putting it here anyway. So go Aces.
I mean, it's Nashville plus Evansville, as local as it can possibly be. Here. So, yeah. Anything else that we want to discuss? We put in the rundown about making the plugs and predict the next soccer team in the state to win a championship. Like what? Why that as our prediction?
I just couldn't think of anything, and I just was curious who you'd say.
I mean, I know who
interesting.
Steven is going to say.
Because you all think I'm going to say Chattanooga, and it's not going to happen.
I mean, you did just say Chattanooga, so
CFC. I know you live for those 3 letters.
He loves his CFC Blues.
That's true. And both sides of the Atlantic.
Yes.
No, let's wrap it up. It's been an hour and 15 minutes of recording. I think people are sick of us.
I'm sick of us too. All right, Valair, plug and make your prediction for next soccer team to win it.
Please go to at Valair Shabilla on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Twitter. I have a lot of content coming up, and I have a little bit of a new project I've been working on with some other folks as well as the World Cup approaches. Hopefully soon we'll be able to release some more information on that. So make sure you stay plugged in on all of that stuff. My prediction will be that Nashville SC will be the next. We're talking about pro teams, right?
It can be whatever.
Okay.
Be whatever.
Lipscomb. I don't know. Lipscomb will win. There you go. That's my prediction. You said I could do whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a filler because Steven always wants a prediction of some sort.
Go ahead.
So,
go ahead.
You can
play.
You can follow me at Clay Lessel on Instagram and Twitter, and you can check out the Nashville Soccer Archive. If you have a donation that you would like to make, like a physical donation to the archive, or if you have digital files like that you think would be worthwhile in the archive, please let me know. Reach out to me on Twitter or Instagram. The archive is at Vandy, and all right, I'll say Vandy's going to win a national title, I guess. For pro, yeah, NSC is going to win the Champions Cup.
Well, I do believe actually that isn't the I think Vandy is in the tournament too, aren't they?
Steven, are you serious?
What? I got distracted.
Steven, really?
I am going to
said that. They're number 1 seed.
I'm going to say Vandy as well. I think Vandy's easy. I'm going to say Vandy.
Come up with your own stuff. What the heck?
All right, fine. At PH Steven HD on all of my stuff and everything. And yeah.
Make a prediction right now. That's different than mine and Clay's. Right now, make a prediction.
Say it, Steven. You know you want to say it. So just say what we all know you want to say for who the next MLS Next Pro champion is going to be.
No, I am going to say that it's going to be Vanderbilt. Thank you so much for listening to the show. We truly do appreciate it. You guys are amazing, fantastic folks. I was going to go like bold prediction, but like, again, I'm scared, honestly, because I don't want to do it because I don't know what's going to be said. I was going to make a joke of like, oh, the new Memphis team that gets put in USL is going to be the first team that wins it. But then I'm not doing that because I don't like that team either.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for listening, and keep an eye out for a gif of Valair whenever I said that Nashville's going to win the Champions Cup.
I think we're taking a break as well. So enjoy your Thanksgiving. We will not be back next week unless some random announcement happens this week that we need to cover. But I think we'll be taking a break next week. Hopefully we have some more news and stuff the week after that we can talk about. Maybe Clay will actually prepare his game that he's been meaning to prepare for the next couple weeks now that he has that time. So thank you so much for listening. Appreciate it. Have a good rest of your week.